I know you clicked on this video for one reason. You feel that deep down something about our health is fundamentally wrong. You've tried diets, exercises, supplements, and still, the answers seem to be out of reach. Well, today I'm going to tell you the story of something that seems counterintuitive, something our human body already knows how to do, but that modern society has made us forget, healing through absence. Today, you'll discover why the most powerful tool to combat the leading cause of death and disability in the world isn't medication, but the discipline of not eating. And what's more, you'll understand how this ancient practice can reboot your body, rewire your brain, and even reverse diseases that modern medicine considers incurable. And believe me, the most surprising part of this story, the one that will truly give you the feeling of having uncovered a secret, is saved for the end. The story we're about to embark on begins with the paradox of our era. Why, in a world with unprecedented access to food, are most of us sick and unhappy? Why are 76% of people overweight or obese? Dr. Goldhammer, a pioneer in medicine, has spent 4 decades of his life answering these questions, and he's come to a conclusion that flies in the face of common sense. He observed that the diseases that are common today, like high blood pressure, diabetes, and gout, were in antiquity called diseases of kings because only the wealthy elite had enough access to food to develop them. The lives of our ancestors were defined by the struggle for food. The need to get calories and avoid being eaten was the strongest biological force. The people who stored fat lived to reproduce. Today, we live in a world where the opposite is the problem. The ultra-processed food, with its artificially enhanced flavors, has hijacked our brains. These foods, loaded with salt, oil, and sugar SOS, stimulate our pleasure mechanisms, encouraging us to eat much more than we need. This is why sometimes, at night, you eat something even after a big dinner. You're not hungry, but you're bored, tired, or fatigued. And when you eat, you feel a momentary relief, thinking you must have been hungry. But in reality, you were just tired. Fasting is the evolutionary response to this modern problem. Dr. Goldhammer argues that fasting isn't a diet, but a healing intervention, the complete abstinence of all substances in an environment of complete rest. The key is rest. If you stay too active while fasting, your body will burn lean tissue, like muscle, to sustain itself. But if you rest, it enters a state of economy and the magic happens. The brain, which normally burns a huge amount of glucose, switches to burning fat. This is the biological switch our body has, a survival mechanism that allowed us to get through periods of scarcity. Today, it's our most powerful weapon against excess. The body enters a state of fat burning, especially visceral fat, the fat that sits around your organs and acts like a tumor, secreting inflammatory compounds that cause the most common diseases of our era. For most of us, you don't need to do a long fast to get benefits. One of the most effective tools is intermittent fasting, also called time-restricted feeding, a practice that Dr. Goldhammer and his team have practiced for over 40 years. The simplest way to start is to not eat for 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed. That already gives you a 12-hour fast every day. For most people trying to maintain or lose weight, limiting the eating window can be a great benefit. The suggestion is, when you're tired, go to sleep. And when you're bored, engage in productive activities. But when you're hungry, then you eat. If you limit your eating window to 8 hours, you might be surprised by the results. For those with very high caloric needs, like competitive athletes, an 8-hour window might not be enough. But for most of us, it's a helpful tool to minimize overeating. This form of fasting, as simple as it seems, helps the body to cleanse and go into fat-burning mode. And this is where I make a sincere request. If you felt a sense of relief in knowing that perhaps the problem isn't you, but the way we've been taught to eat, I invite you to be part of this journey. A click, a comment, or a subscription might seem like small gestures, but they are what help us continue to spread the science and, who knows, touch the life of someone who needs to hear this truth. But what happens when you're fasting for longer periods? Your body enters a state of reboot that goes far beyond just burning fat. It begins to cleanse itself. This process, called autophagy, is how the body gets rid of old cells, metabolic waste, and even cancer cells. In studies with rodents, fasting increased their lifespan by up to 100%. The shocking conclusion is that it's not fasting that makes you live longer, but excess food that cuts your life in half. And this cleansing also happens at the most fundamental level of your being, the gut microbiome. Your gut, home to trillions of bacteria, is your second brain, and fasting reboots it, clearing out bad bacteria and giving you the chance to rebuild a healthy gut flora. This gut regeneration may be why fasting is so effective at reversing diseases like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, and even symptoms of depression and anxiety, as a large part of your brain's neurotransmitters are produced in the gut. And this is where we get to the most powerful part of this story. The proof of fasting's power isn't just in the graphs and studies, but in the stories of the people who lived it. Goldhammer shared the case of a young woman with a type of cancer called follicular lymphoma. Her oncologist told her that diet had nothing to do with the disease, but she decided to fast for 3 weeks at his clinic. He reported that you could literally feel the tumors disappearing. A year later, she was cancer-free. The British Medical Journal published the case, but suggested it was a spontaneous remission. He followed her for 3 years, and she remained cancer-free. He published the follow-up, and after 10 years, she is still free of the disease, following a strict whole foods diet. Another case is that of a man with stage 4 lymphoma who had already tried chemotherapy without success. He did a 39-day fast at Goldhammer's clinic and had a dramatic improvement. His story, like hers, has been published in peer-reviewed journals. These are not cures in the traditional sense, but proof that the body, when freed from the burden of excess, has a surprising capacity for healing. What we've learned from these stories is that fasting isn't a magic bullet, but a medical intervention that restores the body's innate ability to heal. It's not for everyone and should be done with care, especially with prolonged fasts. But it shows us that the answer to health isn't in adding more medications, but in allowing the body, an incredibly intelligent machine, to do what it does best: heal itself. If you've made it this far, I know this story has resonated with you in some way. Perhaps it's given you a glimmer of hope, a relief in knowing that the answer might be closer than you think. If this conversation brought you any value, if it made you think, if it gave you a little hope, I invite you to share this video with someone you love. The simple act of sharing can change a person's life. And if you're not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button to not miss the next video. I'd love to read what you thought of this story, and if it's made you reconsider your own health. Leave a comment below. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me.